Hi everyone, welcome to another segment on Chapter 4, Elasticity. And in this segment, we jump from price elasticity of demand and go straight into elasticity of supply. It also can be referred to as price elasticity of supply. But now we're putting on the producer's hat and seeing the responsiveness of quantity supplied to changes in price of products. But let me just do something here I always like to do in the classroom. I'm going to say that the elasticity or price elasticity of demand is equal to Q demanded 2 minus Q demanded 1, all divided by the average quantity, QD2 plus QD1, divided by 2. And then we end up dividing all of that by P2 minus P1 divided by the average price, P2 plus P1 divided by 2. Okay, that's price elasticity of demand, right? So now what I want to do is the 30-second launch into price elasticity of supply. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Oh, a little trickier. Get rid of that one. A little trickier yet. There it goes. Get rid of that one. And then I come back over here. Let's use a different color and say, well, quantity supplied 2 minus quantity supplied 1 over the average quantity supplied, QS2 plus QS1 divided by 2. And everything else remains the same, except just to be clear what we're talking about, I'll get rid of this, which stands for elasticity of demand, and add elasticity of supply. That's it, really. You're looking at the responsiveness of quantity supplied. So we're looking at it from the producer's side, the responsiveness of quantity supplied when there's a result that results from a change in the price. Of course, it wouldn't be fair just to leave you with that, but really, that's all there is to it. But let's take a look at it a little more formally and at the slide. So elasticity of supply is a measure of how much quantity supplied changes as a result of a change in price. So we're looking at the ability or the responsiveness of producers to adjust how much they're producing based on price. Remember before we said if price were rising, producers would want to produce more because they make more profit. So let's see how quickly they can do that. We'll measure the responsiveness. So it's the percentage change in quantity supplied over percentage change in price. That's the change in quantity supplied over the average and the change in price over the average. And I know I drew it on the previous slide, but I'm just going to pop it up here again as well. So here it is. There's the formula. Just notice that there's now S's rather than D's. So now we're just looking at the change in quantity supplied due to a change in price. More importantly, we're looking at the percentage change in quantity supplied due to a change in price. And we can also say, well, if it's greater than 1, it's elastic. They're very responsive, really quick for them to be able to change their quantity supplied. And if it's less than 1, well, we'll say it's inelastic. That should be very familiar, where the responsiveness is not quite so strong. It's actually very little responsiveness changing quantity supplied to changes in price. Much more difficult to do so if it's inelastic. So let's look at an example of elasticity in 3 periods. We're going to say the market period supply is perfectly inelastic. In the short run, it's inelastic, and in the long run, supply is more elastic. But what do we mean by this? Well, let's just think of say it's a fishing dock in Nanaimo, BC, and at the end of the day, all the fishermen are coming in and they've got their fish in their plastic tubs and they throw them out on the dock, set them down, and they start selling fish. So that market is that afternoon. So that's the quantity all of the fisher people have to sell. So the supply curve is virtually straight up and down. So the price starts out somewhere around here, and the quantity they can sell is that amount. Well, let's say that tourists are in town and it gets really busy for some reason and a bunch of buses stop with coolers in the back, and the price starts getting bid up because they all want natural West Coast salmon. Too bad, they'd like to supply more, the producers would, because the price is really going up, but there's only this much that they caught that day that they've got in their plastic Tupperwares that they've set out on the dock to sell. So no matter how high price goes, that's it. That's the quantity supply they've got for that day. That's the supply curve. It's perfectly inelastic. There's nothing they can do to get more fish. Well, what could we do in a week? Let's say we're looking at a week. So this is what we'll call the short run. I'll say, for example, 1 week. And remember, this is arbitrary. I'm just picking a week. Well, in that week, if I knew price was going to be rising, I could respond. Maybe I could start fishing earlier in the morning. Maybe I could bring my brother-in-law on my boat to fish. Maybe I could bring one more fishing rod. But I can do some things to adjust the quantity for that price increases. So on the first day, if the price was there and rising, yeah, I might only have this much to bring into the docks, but then the next morning I could actually do some of those things I said, go a bit earlier. So then with a rise in price, I could actually adjust the quantity supplied. So over a week, there's things I can do, and that makes that supply curve more elastic. Producers can be more responsive to price increases. Okay, well, let's look at the long run. Say it's 1 whole year. So we're going from season to season. Well, in the long run, not only can I bring another fishing rod and hire my brother-in-law, in fact, I'd probably fire my brother-in-law and hire a real fisher person so they could come out and really help me increase my catch. So another thing I could do is maybe build a bigger net, build a bigger boat, different things that could happen over a year. All we're trying to point out is that maybe the price was here at one point, but over the season, they're expecting prices to be quite a bit higher, maybe because demand is stronger. Maybe BC has become much more popular for tourists to come to. For whatever reason, they think price is going to rise to a higher level. And therefore, fishermen, they have the whole year to adjust. So if we're looking at the whole year, the quantity supplied could increase quite a bit more just because they have that flexibility. The time gives them the flexibility to increase their potential fishing catch. So longer time frames have more elastic supply. That's the only conclusion that we wanted to make here, is that time is on our side and helps increase elasticity. Okay, let's look at a case of perfectly inelastic supply. So this supply is perfectly inelastic because it's straight up and down, it's vertical. It happens to be for concert seats, so you can picture the Saddle Dome where there's only so many seats available. So that's it, no more, no less. Perfectly inelastic supply, kind of like the salmon fishing one I mentioned in the previous slides. So the first place we'd start is if you look at that perfectly inelastic supply and say demand was exactly like this, where those two crossed, that would be at an equilibrium price of 40 for the tickets, and you'd sell all 17,000 seats. So what would happen is that the number of people that wanted to buy seats would be equal to just as many seats as were available. So the market would clear, so to speak, and everyone would go home happy. That's kind of boring. What would happen if the concert promoter severely underestimated demand? So the concert promoter came in and set the price at 40, but demand actually turned out to be way back here. Yikes. What's happened in this case then is that this is only how many seats are wanting to be purchased, because the demand is quite a bit lower than the promoter thought, but there's 17,000 seats. So that ends up having a surplus of seats of 3,000. That's kind of a major mistake. Now the promoter has a problem trying to fill those empty seats because nobody wants them. That does not look good in the news. The press is all over it. And they start giving away tickets when you buy a Big Mac at McDonald's or when you shop at 7-Eleven. So that's not good for the reputation for the band or for the promoter. So that's an interesting situation you don't want to get yourself into. But take a look at what promoters might want to do. Let's say that we set the price at 40 again, but the promoter knows that demand is way out here somewhere. Why would they set the price so low when they know the demand is so strong? So think about it. If the price is 40, the promoter knows they only have 17,000 seats to sell, But at that price of 40, they know demand is going to be way out here somewhere. Let's say they know 22,000 people want seats, but there's only 17,000 seats available. Why the heck would they put the price so low? Well, if they did it on purpose, it could be because now there's a big shortage of seats from 17,000 to 22,000. 5,000 people won't get seats. What does that do? That shortage creates scalping. So then all of a sudden, tickets have sold out in a minute. That hits the news. It's on the radio. Tickets are being scalped for $80. I just gave away the answer, right? So that's really good hype for a concert promoter. And that's exactly what they might do. They'll understand there's going to be a shortage and they don't care. They're only charging 40 for the tickets, but the hype will push that price of tickets all the way up to 80 on the scalping market. So the answer here is if there was 17,000 tickets available, what price could you get on the market? Well, you go all the way up to the demand curve and come across, and the scalpers could sell them for $80. So that's a pretty interesting example using three different types or three different levels of demand with an inelastic supply, and what a concert promoter could do using their understanding of elasticity and demand. So that's it for this section on supply elasticity. We're going to go on and do a couple segments on income elasticity and cross price elasticity, and we'll see you when we get there.